for a brand new show. Scooby Doo is here again, away we go.
Scooby Doo is running from a spooky ghost.
Shaggy isn't doing what he does the most. Hey, come on, get involved till the mystery is solved.
Hang around for Scooby Doo.
Hey, come on, get involved till the mystery is solved.
Hang around for Scooby Doo. That's my pal. Scooby Dooby Doo.
Hello, Scooby Doo fans! Welcome to my Season 2, Episode 2 review of The Scooby Doo Show. So last time I continued my reviews of The Scooby Doo Show with a review of Season 2, Episode 1 of The Scooby Doo Show. I hope you guys enjoyed that. But of course today, I'll be covering Season 2, Episode 2 of The Scooby Doo Show, titled Vampire Bats and Scaredy Cats, which was released on September 17th, 1977. The short synopsis of the episode is, the gang go to visit Daphne's friend Lisa for her birthday, which is at a very old hotel that Lisa will inherit on the day after her 18th birthday. Velma says that it is believed that there are vampires on the island, but she herself thinks that it's nonsense. But when a real vampire shows up and Lisa is turned into a vampire herself, the vampire legend becomes very believable. So like I said in my last video, normally I would tell you guys that I'm watching Season 2 of The Scooby Doo Show on a DVD or any sort of physical media. However, unfortunately, Season 2 of The Scooby Doo Show has not been released on DVD. This specific episode has been released on a variety of different DVDs, but they're more so collections of different episodes from different shows, and not necessarily part of a full DVD of the entire second season of The Scooby Doo Show or the entire show as a whole. So for the purposes of this review, as well as future reviews of Season 2, I'm going to be watching this episode on HBO Max. So, like I said in the last episode, apologies in advance for the quality. If it, doesn't stand, isn't up to par with how it usually is, it's just because Season 2 of The Scooby Doo Show has yet to be released on any sort of physical media, unfortunately. So as I mentioned in the last video, the first two episodes of Season 2 of The Scooby Doo Show have a rough cut and a final cut. Now for the purposes of this video, this is just a review, so I'm not going to be comparing and contrasting it. I did the same thing that I did last video where I'm just reviewing it. I can't compare and contrast it. There's videos out there that do that. Maybe one day I might do my own compare and contrast of the two versions. But for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to be reviewing the episode as a whole, not, comparing the two different versions. I will, of course, bring up some differences, because unlike in the last episode where it's not easily accessible and I wasn't able to watch the rough cut version of that, this episode, Vampire Bats and Scaredy Cats rough cut version, is actually much more accessible, and I'll actually leave a link down below if you want to watch it yourself. I do recommend watching it, so that way you get the full picture of both versions. But I'll probably only bring up a few differences between the rough cut and the final cut, in the review that, that stood out to me the most. As far as which version I prefer, I grew up with the final cut of the episode, so naturally I'm going to prefer that, but I do have some aspects of the rough cut that I do like. Obviously, my theory still stands from the previous video. Now, at the time of recording this, I'm recording this before I've even uploaded my Season 2, Episode 1 review, so I don't know what responses you guys have put forth yet. But, like I said in the last video, my personal theories or explanation of what I think happened is that I think that either the rough cut was not aired and was accidentally aired or put on syndication or put on a DVD because Hanna-Barbera gave, both versions of the episode to the company that was either airing it or putting it out on physical media or DVD. And the other explanation that I had was that I thought that the rough cut aired, but only aired once when it originally aired, and that the final, the final version is what was aired subsequently and is the version that Hanna-Barbera wanted. Personally, my own theory is that I think the final version is what Hanna-Barbera wanted to go out, and the rough cut is the version that they were forced to put out. That's personally what I think. Like, you know, obviously there's a lot of differing opinions on it, and we'll never know for sure what the explanation is. And like I said in the last video, if you guys have any explanations on this whole rough cut, final cut debacle, and why there's two different versions of the first two episodes of the Scooby Doo Show, but not for every other episode, I would very much appreciate it. You know, any explanation would be, you know, great. But yeah, my personal, you know, take on it is that, one, I do prefer the final cut because that's what I grew up with, but there are aspects of the rough cut that I wish they had that they still had used in the final version. And my other explanation is that I don't think the rough cut is the version Hanna-Barbera wanted out, and I think it's the version that they were forced to put out, and that the final version, you know, the final cut is the actual version they wanted out. So yeah, those are my personal explanations, but again, we'll never know. So any explanations you guys have, or any theories on what you think may be the case of why there's two different versions of the first two episodes of the Scooby Doo Show, I would really appreciate it. Now, as far as this episode's reception is concerned, this episode is highly regarded in the Scooby Doo community. This is the most well-liked episode of the Scooby Doo Show. In fact, many people would say this is the best episode of the Scooby Doo Show and one of the best episodes of the Scooby Doo franchise. And I can't argue with them because I grew up with this episode. This is a personal, you know, episode for me. I've had fond memories of this episode. I love this episode growing up. I have a lot of memories associated with it. So I, you know, went into this episode with very high expectations and, you know, knew that this is a, you know, a tall task to cover because this is a huge episode. This is the most popular episode of the Scooby Doo Show and considered the best episode of the Scooby Doo Show and one of the best of the franchise. But with all that being said, do I still hold my opinion that it's a great episode? Do I agree with the rest of the Scooby Doo community that this is a great episode, or has my opinion changed at all from an average or even bad, you know, point of view towards the episode? Well, let's find out, shall we? So let's take a look at the episode to see whether I think it is a good or bad episode of the Scooby Doo Show. The episode begins with the gang, along with Scooby-Dum, heading to Great Skull Island to meet Daphne's friend Lisa, who is about to inherit her family's hotel. Before they arrive, Velma notes that Skull Island is rumored to be home to vampires. I should also mention that when Scooby-Dum takes a picture of Skull Island, he says smile in the final version, but in the rough cut, he doesn't say this. As soon as they arrive, the ferry captain asks them to take a box to the hotel for one of the guests. As Shaggy and Fred carry it, they drop it, revealing the package to be a coffin. Scooby-Dum opens it, and a bat flies out. I should mention that when Scooby and Scooby-Dum, you know, load the coffin into the Mystery Machine, there's a lot of weird, spacey xylophone sound effects. Thankfully, they are dropped from the final version, which is much better and isn't as out of place and weird as the rough cut was with the musical choices. They arrive at the hotel and give the coffin to Mr. Drackle, who needed it for an Undertaker's convention. Mr. Drackle is voiced by Casey Kasem in the final version, in this version, but in the rough cut, he's voiced by Frank Welker, and I prefer Casey's rendition of Mr. Drackle than Frank's. Frank's is a little too soft for my liking. Casey's is much crude, and he feels more, he makes Drackle feel more suspicious, and has that gravelly voice to him rather than that, you know, kind of high-pitched, squeaky kind of voice that Frank had. They meet Lisa and her Uncle Leon and decide to turn in for the night. Something odd about the final version is that when Daphne and Velma are getting ready for bed, they all of a sudden, you know, just react to something in the rough cut, you know, and then go right to bed. But in the final version, they incorporated the window shutter shutting, which is why they were spooked and reacted the way that they were and ran to the bed, which makes a lot more sense. I'm glad they added that. While they sleep, Daphne awakens and sees a vampire standing in front of her bed, and it's pure nightmare fuel, by the way, and she calls for help, and everyone arrives, causing the vampire to flee. They begin searching for clues when Scooby-Dum discovers a ventilating duct, explaining how the vampire got into the room. Shaggy, Scooby, and Scooby-Dum crawl inside to search, while Fred, Velma, and Daphne tell Lisa what has been going on. The phone then rings, and Daphne answers it, hearing only a high-pitched bell. Daphne says hello 3 times in the rough cut, as well as is anybody there. But in the final version, she says 2 hellos, and no is anybody there. She doesn't say that in the final version either. So there's an extra hello in the rough cut, and is there anybody there in the rough cut? Whereas in the final version, it's just 2 hellos. Meanwhile, Shaggy, Scooby, and Scooby Dum search the room, and the vampire then appears and begins to chase them. I do like this chase scene. There's a couple of, differences between the rough cut and the final cut in this chase scene. For one, Scooby yells yikes or yipes in the rough cut, but in the final version, Shaggy yells zoinks when they look under the bed and get scared. When Shaggy and Scooby get discovered by the vampire in the closet, I believe, or the wardrobe, Shaggy yells an extra help when we see a shot of the gang reacting to something in the rough cut. We hear Shaggy yelling help in the rough cut, whereas in the final version, Shaggy yelling an extra help and the gang reacting to it is, that extra help is gone. So the gang are essentially reacting to nothing and then say, oh, Shaggy's in trouble. Well, how would you know that? Like, there's no audio of Shaggy yelling help. I wish they had kept that in the final version. It was very odd that they cut that out because it makes Fred, Daphne, Velma, and Lisa look weird just standing around reacting to nothing. And this is not the only instance that this happens. There's another instance where the gang react to nothing. And like I said, this happened with Daphne and Velma in the room where they react to nothing. So there was a couple instances. Well, the final cut, thankfully, the first time it happened, the final cut fixed that, and that was the rough cut problem. But these 2 times, it's a problem with the final cut, but not the rough cut. But yeah, I like the chase scene. I think it's great. I like seeing the first encounter with the vampire. It's creepy. The vampire is, yelling that he wants Scooby Dum's blood. Very creepy shit, and the room's all dark and shit, love it.
Wow! This must be where they keep the dust from all the other rooms. Let's look around and hope we don't find anything. It's you, Scoob. Like, it's so dark in here, I can't see your paw in front of my face.
I can't even see my flashlight. Ooh, flashlight.
It's old pointy teeth. I want blood.
No! Blood? Uh-oh.
After escaping, the gang reunites and discovers a dog whistle on the floor, which is their first clue. Uncle Leon then arrives and reveals to Lisa that her grandfather was a vampire who was determined to turn Lisa into a vampire. The gang begins to split up and look for clues. Fred thinks the vampire is hiding in one of the coffins, so he, Velma, and Daphne go to investigate the coffins, while Shaggy, Scooby, and Scooby Dum stay to guard Lisa, and they barricade the door with furniture, and Lisa answers the phone, hears the high-pitched bell from earlier that Daphne heard, and turns into a vampire. She begins to chase them along with the vampire, who Shaggy is now dubbed Gramps The Vamp. They escape and find Fred, Velma, and Daphne, who are searching through all the coffins, and they have found a paper titled XO6 Desmo. Shaggy and the Scoobies then see Gramps the Vamp lead Lisa into a coffin and hide in one. Something interesting about this episode is that in an earlier scene, Fred says, "You and the Scooby brothers guard Lisa," which, by the way, is incorrect, because Scooby and Scooby Dum are not brothers, they are cousins, so they still do the brother-cousin mix-up like they did in Headless Horseman Halloween. And in this scene, they say, "You two stay here and look for more clues," but Fred, there's 3 of them. There's Scooby Dum in there as well. Did you forget about Scooby Dum? Why did he just say you two? Also, something interesting is that there's a shot where Lisa has her nightgown at one point when, the Gramps the Vamp is telling her to rest in the coffin. But in every other shot, she's shown to have her regular turtleneck, sweater type of outfit. So it's a very weird inconsistency. There's a lot of inconsistencies in this episode as well as in the scene. But I do like the coffin chase scene. It's, I love Shaggy, Scooby, and Scooby-Dum outwitting the vampire, but it's also very creepy seeing the vampire put Lisa into a coffin and thinking that she turned into a vampire. It's really creepy and scary, so I do love this chase scene.
Follow me, child. Zoinks! It's old Fang Face again! Quick, out of sight! He's got Lisa. It's time for you to rest, my dear.
Yes, grandfather.
Oh, now you did it. Every dog for himself. Help!
They inform Fred and the girls about the situation, and Velma smacks Lisa's face a few times. This causes Lisa to wake up, and she doesn't remember what happened after the bell rang. They then devise a scheme to trap Gramps the Vamp. Now, something about this trap sequence is, like I said earlier, the gang were reacting to nothing because Shaggy's extra help wasn't added in the final version. Well, there's something similar here. The gang suddenly react to something and then scatter all over the place. Scooby and Scooby-Dum are about, getting ready to, close the coffin on the vampire, be by the coffin so they can trap the vampire. Fred, Daphne, Velma are going into the closet, or what should be the closet. I'll get on that a little bit. So they can hide and then come out with some rope, I believe, and, tie up the coffin with the vampire in it. And Shaggy's supposed to be the bait and pretend to be Lisa. Now, they don't have the audio of the vampire screaming Lisa, besides when he, comes out of the ventilation duct. But that's in the rough cut. And I have no clue why they took that out, because that was, it didn't make sense to cut it out, because the gang are now reacting to nothing, and, and just scattering all over the place, getting into position, and I'm like, wait, what are you reacting to? I didn't hear anything. But in the rough cut, you realize why they reacted the way they were. It's because they heard Gramps the Vamp yell Lisa's name. So, again, don't know why the final version doesn't have this. And also something interesting is that when the vampire is chasing Shaggy, the vampire yells blood in the rough cut, but in the final version, he does not yell blood, and I wish they had kept that too, because it made him very scary and menacing, and there was and Fred, Daphne, Velma were reacting to something while they were, opening the closet, which was him screaming blood. But in the final version, they're not reacting to anything, and it just looks like a couple seconds of Fred, Daphne, Velma standing there. I'm like, why are you standing there? Go get the vampire. He's chasing after Shaggy. Also, for some odd reason, they animate, the door that Shaggy runs into to be the closet as well as the vampire. Why are Shaggy and the vampire running into the closet? I'm assuming that was supposed to be the doorway, and Fred, Daphne, Velma were supposed to be in the closet. But for some reason, I guess they switched it around. This is an error in both versions, by the way. And I don't know why they had that. It was very weird and inconsistent. But yes, I do love this trap sequence. I feel bad for Shaggy that he has to act as bait. But good on him for being a good sport, and good on Scooby and Scooby-Dum for trapping the vampire. Also, by the way, when the vampire gets trapped by Scooby and Scooby-Dum in the coffin, and he sinks in the pool, in the rough cut, he sinks and doesn't come back up. But in the final version, he's bopping up and down, and I think that's good because, in the rough cut, it makes it look like that he's that he's, you know, down in the bottom of the water drowning, whereas in the final version, you know, they make it clear that no, he's not drowning, he's just, you know, incapacitated and, you know, trapped. But yeah, I love the trap sequence, really good sequence. Like I said, wish they kept some of the audio cues from the rough cut that were missing, but overall I still like it.
I got the vampire! I got the vampire!
Like everybody, help!
The vampire's coming.
After him! Scooby, you and Dum bring the coffin. Zoinks! Like I'm a goner! Somebody! Help!
We did it! We did it! Yep, we did it!
So like I said previously, they succeed in capturing the vampire, but not in the way they intended, and the vampire turns out to be Uncle Leon. So his motive was to get the heritage of the hotel away from Lisa, and he invented the story of Lisa's grandfather being a vampire, and somehow unknowingly hypnotized her with the bell from his watch being a post-hypnotic trigger that would make her think she was a vampire. That way, she would be put in a mental institution, and the hotel will be given to him. The paper found by the gang was an order from Uncle Leon to Exo, the local exotic pet shop on the mainland, for 6 Desmo, which is vampire bats. And Desmo is the Latin family name for vampire bats, and it's mainly called Desmodontidae, as Velma says in the episode. He used the silent whistle to call the bats. The next day, Lisa wants to reward the gang for helping her, however, Shaggy humbly tries turning it down, since Lisa's a friend of theirs. But Shaggy and Scooby quickly come around when it turns out that the reward is a lot of hamburgers. And the episode ends with Scooby then acting like he's been hypnotized and scarfs it all down, leaving none left for poor old Shaggy. I'm going to give Season 2, Episode 2, The Scooby Doo Show, 5 stars out of 5. I mean, what could be said about this episode that's been already said so many times by other people? This episode is fantastic in all retrospects. Like, it's a perfect episode. It's definitely my favorite episode of the Scooby Doo Show. Like, no contest. Like, Harem Scarum Sanitarium's great, but I think this does top that episode. I think this is so far my favorite episode of the Scooby Doo Show, and I still hold the fond memories that I did when I was a kid. I still love this episode. I love everything about it. It's a good, creepy, scary, classic episode. It's one I can always go back to. It has a lot of great horror in it, a good blend of comedy, and a good blend of mystery. Like, it's just a great overall episode, and I can see why it's so loved by the Scooby-Doo community, because I feel the same way. This episode is perfect in every retrospect, and I tried to find any flaws that I think this episode has, and honestly, guys, I have no negatives for the episode. This is the first episode of the Scooby-Doo Show that I found to be perfect. I have no issues with this episode whatsoever. I loved every aspect of it. So this is just going to be a glorified, praise fest, because I'm just going to be praising the hell out of this episode, which I'm sure you guys wanted anyways. But yeah, my opinion on the episode has not changed one bit. I still love this episode so much. This is my favorite episode of the Scooby-Doo Show. This is a contender for one of the best episodes of the franchise. It's perfect in every way. So let's just dive into the positives for the episode. Let's talk about why each aspect of the episode works for me. So starting with the positives, my first one is I think Fred was a good leader in this episode. He told the gang where they needed to go. He fulfilled his usual role of being a leader. He helped create a cool, nice little trap, with the coffin. Not the way he had anticipated, but I think it was a neat enough trap. It wasn't the more extravagant of his traps, but a pretty creative trap nonetheless. And he did also help Velma piece together the clues to help solve the mystery, so I feel like overall Fred did a good job in all retrospects. He fulfilled his basic role of being a good leader, creating a trap that was pretty cool and neat, and helping Velma piece together the clues to help solve the mystery. Next, we have Daphne. Daphne actually helped find one of the clues of the episode, which was the tingling bells. You know, the bells that she heard on the phone, which any keen observer listening to that could piece together the identity of the villain. But yeah, the bell on the phone was one of the clues, so she was the one that figured that out. And she had a bit of personal stakes in the mystery. I mean, this was her friend. Lisa was her friend. I did consider Lisa more of a friend of the gang's. You know, it didn't seem like she was too, you know, closed off from the other members of the gang. It did feel like she at least knew them somewhat, but it could have just been Daphne filled her in about the rest of the gang. But yeah, I do think there was a bit of personal stakes because this was a close friend of Daphne's. So I do think it worked in that retrospect. Like I said, I do kind of still consider Lisa more of a friend of the entire gangs because she's friendly towards all the gang members. And not that she wouldn't be, but it just feels like she knows all of them pretty well. But still, I think Daphne, you know, she helped find one of the clues, which was the bell on the phone, which, you know, pointed towards the villain or a suspect that could be the potential villain. And she, you know, had a bit of personal stakes in the episode. Her friend was endangered, and she needed to help solve the mystery in order to save her friend from this potential vampire. Then we have Velma. Velma, I thought, fulfilled her basic role pretty well. She helped piece together the clues to help solve the mystery. I felt like each clue that her and Fred found, they were piecing it together. And I would say Velma had a little bit of leadership in the episode. So I do think Velma was good in this episode. She fulfilled her basic role, you know, and seeing her scared by the vampire, which is something we don't see often. We don't see Velma scared too often. Seeing her, you know, frightened was pretty neat. Something new and fresh and different. You know, kind of reminds me of the backstage raids when she was scared and didn't want to solve the mystery anymore. But you could tell Velma was very much scared of this mystery, but still, you know, trucked forward with it. So I did like seeing that aspect of, you know, for Velma in this episode. But yeah, she fulfilled her basic role in this episode. She helped piece together the clues to help solve the mystery. Next up, we have Shaggy and Scooby. Shaggy and Scooby, I thought, were their usual funny, cowardly selves. They were pretty entertaining and funny throughout this episode. Had a lot of great moments. They were quite cowardly in this episode, which I completely understand why. This vampire was nightmare fuel incarnate. And the things he was saying and doing was definitely nightmare fuel. And they did help, you know, capture the vampire at the end. You know, Shaggy was the bait of the trap, which I feel bad for him. And Scooby helped capture the vampire, was one of the two that helped capture the vampire at the end by putting him in the coffin, and, you know, which in turn went into the pool. So yeah, Shaggy and Scooby, they fulfilled their basic roles in the episode of being their usual funny, cowardly selves, and they helped capture the vampire at the end. And finally, we have Scooby Dum. Scooby Dum was pretty good in this episode. He helped capture the vampire at the end as well with Scooby Doo. So that was good. And he did help find one of the clues of the episode. In fact, I think he found two of them. He found the X06 Desmo clue in the coffin. And he found the ventilation duct where the vampire came in. So, yeah, I mean, Scooby-Dum probably could have been cut out of the episode and it wouldn't have changed too much. But for what it's worth, I do think he was good. I still think the Headless Horseman of Halloween was probably Scooby-Dum's strongest episode. I think he was okay in this episode. But for what it's worth, he did fulfill, you know, some basic roles pretty well. He helped capture the vampire at the end, and he helped find some of the clues of the episode. So Scooby-Dum at least did something noteworthy in this episode. So I did think Scooby-Dum was good in this episode, but I do think he was I think his best performance so far is probably the Headless Horseman of Halloween. Then we have the villain of the episode, who I thought was very scary, very entertaining, loved the main villain of the episode. So what is there to say about Gramps the Vamp? I mean, he's just a great classic Scooby-Doo villain. So amazing. The way he would stalk people in the shadows, you know, stalking Daphne and Velma in their room in the shadows while they're sleeping. Stalking Shaggy, Scooby, and Scooby-Dum in the dark room when they follow him to the through the ventilation duct into that dark room. The way he would chase after, all the members of the gang and threaten to kill them by draining their blood and saying how he wanted blood. And he had that maniacal laugh, too. Like, that maniacal laugh was so entertaining, yet so scary at the same time. And some people would probably say that they prefer the rough cut version of, Gramps the Vamp. I've heard that, I think his long nose and his face are a little bit goofy, in my opinion. I do prefer him in the final version. Maybe that's just because I grew up with the final version. But regardless, I still think he's scary nonetheless, whichever version you see or grew up with. He's scary nonetheless. He's frightening. He's a very entertaining villain. I mean, he literally at one point stands over Daphne, arms out, his teeth open, like he's about to bite her neck, something looking like something out of a horror movie. I mean, this could be a scene from a fucking Freddy Krueger movie, for all I know, So this is nightmare fuel at its finest. Like, this is like if I was watching a Dracula movie. It is so fucking scary. And the way Daphne looks up, if I saw that while I was sleeping, I would be fucking terrified for my life at that moment. So that was such a fantastic shot. This villain is nightmare fuel incarnate. This is one of the scariest Scooby-Doo villains ever. The way he's like stalking people in the shadows, shrouded in darkness, threatening to kill them by draining them of their blood, maniacally laughing about it as he's doing so and gleefully enjoying scaring them and threatening to kill them. Like this, they did not pull punches with this villain. Gramps the Vamp is iconic for a reason. He's scary and nightmare fuel incarnate, but he's also fun and entertaining. So I love Gramps the Vamp. He's one of the main reasons the episode works. And in fact, he's probably, you could be debated that he's the reason the episode is so fantastic as it is, because he's such a phenomenal villain. It probably, could be top 5 in the Scooby Doo show, maybe even top 5 in the franchise as a whole. I could see being argued. He's definitely one of my favorite villains, and I could see why many people, consider, love him and consider him a beloved villain, because he's iconic in every way. He's scary, he's fun and entertaining. All the things he does in the episode just works for me. So I love Gramps the Vamp as the main villain of the episode. Outside of costume, I found Uncle Leon to be very engaging. I actually really liked Uncle Leon outside of costume. So when we first see Uncle Leon, he's led to believe he seems to be like this, good parental figure. We're led to believe that he's this good man who cares about his niece very much and has the best interest for Lisa. But you realize at the end how selfish of a man he is, how evil of a man he is, because how he never really cared about Lisa at all, his niece, and only cared about inheriting the hotel and keeping the hotel business to himself, rather than letting his niece take over. So, we learn a lot about Uncle Leon and the dimensions of him, and yeah, he's just a fascinating character. The fact that we assume that you wouldn't suspect a family member of yours to be this good, parental figure, but then you find out that they're not what they said they were or led you to believe, and they're actually very evil and selfish and tried to do harmful and evil things towards you. So Uncle Leon's a very great and fascinating character outside of costume. I found the motive of the episode to be fantastic. I really love the motive of the episode. So Uncle Leon's motive in this episode was that he wanted to scare Lisa into believing that she was being hunted and pursued by, her grandfather as a vampire, and potentially being turned into a vampire so that she could be put away in a mental institution for her own protection, and that he could continue inheriting the hotel. I mean, wow, the layers on this motive is fantastic. Not a revenge motive, not a money motive or a land motive. I mean, you could argue maybe a land motive. But the fact that this man is so selfish that he, and evil, that he doesn't want to give up his, the hotel to his niece, and doesn't see it as a family business, but rather his business, and doesn't want to let it go, and that he's willing to go so far as to make his own niece crazy and put her in a mental institution just so he can continue inheriting the hotel. What a diabolical and evil uncle. I mean, wow. I mean, the layers on the motive, the layers of Uncle Leon as a character is just fascinating. Like, this is such an inventive and unique motive, based on how evil and diabolical it is. Like, I've never seen a motive quite like this in the Scooby-Doo franchise up to this point. I wonder if we'll ever get one past this point again. Maybe we will. But for right now, this is so fresh and unique, something that I've never seen before in the Scooby-Doo franchise up to this point. And it's a fantastic motive for all of the right reasons. It's fresh, it's unique, it's, diabolically evil. It's something we've never seen before in the Scooby-Doo franchise up to this point, and I love it. It adds layers to Uncle Leon as a character, and it has so much layers as a motive on its own. I thought there were a good number of suspects in the episode. So you had 3 suspects in the episode. You had the desk clerk, who was very suspicious in the beginning. You could argue that maybe the desk clerk possibly isn't a suspect because he doesn't have much screen time, but he does have enough screen time to where I could consider him a suspect. You have Mr. Drackle, and you have Uncle Leon. So yeah, even if we didn't count the desk clerk, there's still 2 suspects, 1 villain. So they're all equally suspicious. They do a good job. Drackle's definitely the red herring. The desk clerk is pretty strange. And Uncle Leon, if you're a keen observer, like I said, if you notice how Uncle Leon has the wristwatch from earlier and you hear his alarm go off, it's the same noise as the bell, the bell going off on the phone. So if you're a keen observer, could listen to that and be like, oh, maybe Uncle Leon's the villain. So that definitely helped point towards a suspect, that bell. So, and pointed towards Uncle Leon. If you're a keen viewer and observer of the episode and pay enough attention to it, you could deduce Uncle Leon as the villain. So yeah, all of them were equally suspicious. We had a good number of suspects. They definitely tried to lead you with Mr. Drackle or the desk clerk, but if you're keen enough, you could easily suspect Uncle Leon as the villain, and you would be correct. I found the mystery of the episode to be very engaging. I actually really like the mystery of this episode. So the mystery isn't really why Gramps the Vamp is after, Lisa, or why he's haunting the building, because we know why. The mystery I found, for me personally, in this episode, is what was Gramps the Vamp going to do after he turned Lisa into a vampire? Would he turn the hotel staff into vampires and kill the guests by draining their blood? Would they both escape and leave to another location? What was Gramps the Vamp planning to do after he turned his granddaughter into a vampire? What was his plan? Was he going to turn this hotel into like a death trap, like where he would kill tourists for blood and turn the hotel staff into vampires? Or was he just going to leave and escape with Lisa somewhere else and hunt elsewhere? Like, it's very curious and it's very engaging because you don't know what the vampire is going to do once he turns Lisa into a vampire. And clearly he's not against like going after other people, as demonstrated in the episode. He goes after all the members of the gang plenty of times, threatening to kill them by draining his blood, saying he wants blood. So clearly he's not above, trying to kill anybody else, any of the hotel guests. So I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, I think that's really the mystery of the episode. Not, why he's after Lisa or, why he's haunting the hotel, because we know why. The more important question I think is, what does he plan to do after he turns Lisa into a vampire? What's his plan then? What's his goals? What does he hope to accomplish after that? What is he going to do with everybody else once he turns Lisa into a vampire? And I find that very engaging, just the possibilities and outcomes that could come out of that situation. I found the clues of the episode to be really good. So we had plenty of clues in this episode. So we have the coffin in the beginning that Shaggy and Fred and Scooby Dum and the rest of the gang deliver to Mr. Drackle. You have the ventilation duct in Lisa's room, which explains how the vampire got into the room. You have the dog whistle that the vampire drops in the dark room after he, escapes the room after scaring Shaggy, Scooby, and Scooby-Dum. You have the XO6 Desmo note that Scooby-Dum finds in one of the coffins. You have the tingling bells that are heard on Daphne's phone and Lisa's phone. And you have the fake story about the grandfather being a vampire with one picture of the grandfather as a normal old Victorian style kind of dude, and the other one as the grandfather as a vampire over a unnamed woman. So yeah, we had a lot of clues in the episode that mainly pointed towards a suspect or how the vampire was achieving what he was doing, to scare Lisa. None of them really point towards the motive of, wanting to get, I mean, you could argue that it could point towards the motive of getting Lisa out of the picture, but I think the clues more so point towards the suspects of the episode and how the vampire achieves his, the effects that he uses rather than the motive itself. The atmosphere of the episode was really great. I love the atmosphere of this episode. So it was very tense. It had a lot of tension and suspense because I was fearing for the gang's safety because this vampire was literally shouting that he wanted their blood. And he was not playing. He looked like he was trying to kill them. So he was dead serious, and he tried to kill Lisa at points. He tried to kill the rest of the gang at certain points of the episode. Like, he was clearly threatening the gang's safety. I was on the edge of my seat, filled with tension and suspense. And it was also very creepy and eerie due to, the stuff in the hotel, like the coffins, the fact that the vampire's in the shadows stalking everyone, him maniacally laughing, him threatening to drain and kill people, kill people and drain them of their blood. And, it doesn't hurt that there's also a dark, foggy night atmosphere. The fog is a little absent in the final cut. It's definitely more prevalent in the final version, but it's still there in the final cut, just not as prevalent as it is in the rough cut version of the episode. But there's still the dark night atmosphere of it all, and it helps. There's a lot of dark atmosphere in this episode, and the atmosphere was not only enhanced by the stuff in the setting, but the stuff that the vampire was doing. The vampire really enhanced the atmosphere, and so did certain aspects of the setting. And my final positive is that I found the setting of the episode to be really great. I love the setting of the episode. So the main setting of the episode was, of course, the hotel on Great Skull Island. Great Skull Island was the main setting of the episode, but the hotel was the main section of the island that was the main setting of the episode. It doesn't have a name to it, so maybe we'll just call it the Great Skull Island Hotel. That's the main setting of the episode. And I like the Great Skull Island Hotel. It felt very unique and distinct. I don't think we've had a hotel as a setting before up to this point. We've had resorts, like ski resorts and, little stuff here and there. And there's been, we've seen hotels in the Scooby Doo franchise before. But they mainly been used as a way for the gang to just, sleep, and get some rest, like, in between mysteries. Like, it was never, like, a main part of the mystery. It was never the main setting of the mystery. This time it is, and I really like that. And, what makes it great is how, creepy and eerie it is with all these coffins in there, how dark all the rooms are. The desolate nature of the hotel, like, this hotel is very desolate. There's not a lot of guests here. We only see a few people, despite there being some convention with coffins involved. Maybe they haven't arrived yet, but yeah, the desolate nature of the hotel, it feels kind of similar to The Shining in a way, where you're just like in this, there's only a few people in this hotel, and there's not many people around, and there's these creepy coffins in one room, and it's dark in a lot of rooms, and you got this vampire running around shouting that he wants to drain people of their blood, threatening to kill them. He's stalking people in the shadows. It's foggy out. It's dark out. It's just all that stuff. The setting really is great in this episode. This is, I think, the third or fourth instance that we've had Skull Island as a setting. Kind of reminds me of King Kong when they say Skull Island. But yeah, we've had Skull Island as, a sort of a setting before, so that's nothing new. But this Skull Island feels very unique and distinct and has a lot of, flavor and, layers to it. So I really enjoy the setting of the episode. It felt very unique and distinct, had a lot of cool set pieces, and was very creepy and eerie. It added to the atmosphere, and, it fit the villain well. Overall, guys, I would personally recommend this episode to fans and newcomers of the show. I mean, what is there to say about this episode? This episode is a fantastic, creepy, classic episode of the Scooby Doo franchise. It's one of the best episodes of the franchise, probably the best episode of the Scooby Doo Show. It's definitely my favorite so far, my favorite and personal favorite of the series so far, and what I consider to be the best episode of the series so far. And it does everything well. I mean, what more can you say about it? There's no problems or issues that I have for the episode. I love every aspect of this episode. It was fun just watching this episode. I had such a great time. It was scary. It was fun. It had everything. It was a perfect blend of, all the ingredients and elements of the Scooby Doo formula, and all done really well. So yes, if you have not seen this episode, please go watch it. Go watch both versions. I'll leave a link in the description for the rough cut version that's on Internet Archive, so you can view it yourself if you're curious. I do suggest watching the rough cut because it provides some context to certain scenes, that are missing certain stuff. But it also gives you an idea of what the, work in progress and alternate version of the episode is. And you can decide for yourself which version you prefer. But either way, they're both easily accessible. They're both great. And the episode's still great overall. It's a fantastic episode. Please go watch it. You will not be disappointed. It's on HBO Max right now. It's on plenty of DVDs. You can find it anywhere. It's easily accessible. So go watch it if you're a newcomer. You don't need me to tell you twice. This is a fantastic episode. There's a reason I gave it a 5 out of 5. It does everything well. It's perfect. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Please give a like if you did. Comment down below your thoughts on the episode. Do you like this episode? Are you like me and many other Scooby-Doo fans in the Scooby-Doo community? Do you consider it the best episode of the Scooby Doo Show and one of the best episodes of the franchise? Do you hate this episode? I'd be interested in that as well. Do you disagree with me and a lot of Scooby-Doo fans? Do you not have fond memories of this episode? Do you think it's overrated? I'd be interested to hear that. Or are you somewhere in the middle where you just think it's okay and decent and average, but it's not good or bad? I'm curious for your thoughts, so let me know. And subscribe for more Scooby-Doo content like this, or if you're just interested in any of my other content, obviously I'll have more Scooby-Doo content on the way, Scooby-Doo TV show episode reviews, Scooby-Doo movie reviews, video game reviews, book reviews, you name it, we're doing all of it. This is a Scooby-focused channel. I love all things Scooby-Doo. I love the gang, love the franchise. So if you're a newcomer, if you're a diehard fan or casual fan, whatever, if you want, to talk about Scooby-Doo media that isn't talked about much, please come join the channel and experience some amazing Scooby-Doo content. Let's talk about our favorite episodes, or episodes that don't get enough love or attention, or maybe episodes we don't like or consider average. Whatever you want to do, come join the discussion and let's talk about our favorite mystery-solving gang and why they're the best. In my next video, I'll continue my reviews of the Scooby Doo Show with a review of Season 2, Episode 3 of the Scooby Doo Show, titled Hang In There, Scooby-Doo. The episode with the pterodactyl ghost, one of the more famous Scooby-Doo monsters. The pterodactyl ghost was in the live-action movie. It's a monster that's, well regarded. I think I remember liking this episode. I've had some fond memories of it, so I do think I have some pretty, decently high expectations for this episode. Not as high as this episode, but definitely, still high. And, I remember really liking it, so I'm interested to see if my opinion still holds up and, this, does a good job following up this episode. So yeah, if you want to know my thoughts on Season 2, Episode 3, the episode with the pterodactyl ghost, and find out if it's good, bad, or average, come join me next time. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, peace out.
Again, away we go.
Scooby Doo is running from a spooky ghost.
Shaggy is doing what he does the most. Hey, come on, get involved till the mystery is solved.
Hang around for Scooby